Hello, class. I trust that you had a successful first day and were able to access the video. It was nice to see you in class yesterday. Today, I want to talk with you briefly about the country notebook, a little bit about that, and then just a very little bit about our first quiz that's coming up in a couple of weeks at the end of the second week. The country notebook is, by now, you've chosen a country that you're looking at as that country. If you haven't done so, you need to do so and email to me, because nobody gets the same country as somebody else in the class, and first come, first serve. I want to remind you that there are basically three criteria about that. One is that you cannot use your own country. That would not be beneficial to you at all. One is that it would not be good for you to be doing the United States of America, so that country is out. And then the third one is that your country that you choose to build your country notebook around should be a country that is not on your continent. So if you're from South America, then you cannot use another South American country. The country notebook is essentially the building up of a case for presenting a market concept to your company about whether to enter a market with a certain product or not. In a week or so, you will know what that product is, but the first couple of analysis that you do are independent of whatever product. They're just things that you need to know about that. The country notebook information is found in section 6 of your text, so that's why it's so important to get that. And each section is laid out with a checklist of items that you need to cover. For example, the first one is the cultural analysis. You're going to do a cultural analysis of the country, and you can see that it's just a bunch. See that list? There's like 8 or 10 different items here, and then there's a whole nother page. And you just go down on these items and answer the questions. It's real simple. It takes time. I mean, it takes some work. For example, number 3 is the geographic setting, location, climate, topography, things like that. Number 4 is the social institutions. Want to know a little bit about the family and the concepts that drive the family. Is it the nuclear family, the extended family? How valuable is that? An example of that would be how a Japanese family considers the elders in its family and how that system revolves around those, as opposed to, say, an African family from Tanzania and how they structure their familial dynamics. Political systems, religious and aesthetic. There are basically 10 different sections of areas in the cultural analysis. And that's an example. There's a cultural analysis, an economic analysis, a market audit and competitive market analysis, and then a preliminary marketing plan. The first 3 of those, cultural analysis, economic analysis, market audit, and competitive market analysis, are actually encompassed in individual assignments that come pretty quick. So by the second or third week of the class, you will have submitted your cultural analysis to me. So you need to, now that you've gotten your country, start working on that. Find section 6 in your text, refer to those things, and start digging those through out and putting them into a logical order. A couple weeks later, your economic analysis will be handed in. And then a couple weeks later, your marketing analysis, marketing audit, and competitive market analysis. The preliminary marketing plan will be a part of the final presentation that you make. So that is a standalone. The first 3, you will get those back, and you can revise those. If they're worth 50 points, if you get like a 30 on your cultural analysis the first time, when you actually turn in your final notebook, you can redo that cultural analysis, beef it up a little bit, fix some things, and come out with a higher grade, maybe a 45 or 50 if you do really well with that. So be working on that and get that done, because that's actually 2 parts of the overall grade that you get. It's pretty fun that way, isn't it? So the information is in your text. As you're looking at those things, we're looking at some of the same things in class. So consider the things that we talk about. In chapter 2, for example, we talk about some of the cultural aspects like power distance and time, time thinking, and risk aversity. Things in chapter 2 that are really cultural and play right into this cultural analysis that you're going to be doing for the country that you have chosen. Now the process is that you will develop a notebook. I will bring a couple of samples to class so that you can see what my final expectation generally is. It'll be a notebook that has these analyses in there, and that will be actually submitted to me as a major portion of your final grade. Everything that we're doing this semester is building toward this. Ultimately, as I mentioned earlier, this will be your presentation, and you will build your presentation to the class around this, much like you were trying to convince your company that you should enter this market with a certain product. So the digging that you do, the learning that you do about this particular country would be something that if you are going to market in yet another country, then you would have to do it for that country. If your company, for example, is in the United States, they want to enter into the Mexican market, you would have to do this kind of a this kind of a full analysis of the Mexican market, and then make a decision based on that. Then you wanted to enter the French market, you would have to do this whole analysis of the French, and that's something that people actually do. It's actually a job that you can have and do for a company. So when you do your presentation at the end of the semester and you're presenting your research and about your product, this product, and what your company decision is, a couple things. One is that you're trying to convince us that you know what you're talking about, and that you have gathered the information and you can make a case for what your position is. The fourth part of that, the preliminary marketing plan, you go through the different aspects of a marketing plan. You should have had Introduction to Marketing by now, so you know what those are. Things like the SWOT analysis, the promotion mix, sales promotions, distribution, ways that you're going to be doing that stuff, documentation required, the bill of lading, the doc receipt, things that we talk about later on in class, price determination, price points, figuring price points, insurance costs, duties, terms of sale, all kinds of things. That fourth section, the preliminary marketing plan, you go through all of that information, and then you present to your company the final decision. Typically, that will be that you want to enter the market, and this is what it's going to take. But it may be that after doing all the research, you have decided that it's just not for your company to do that. That's a perfectly legitimate position, but you still have to prove that that's a legitimate position. If you just don't do the work and you walk in and say, well, my company shouldn't go into that, I ain't gonna got it. I ain't gonna got it. So that is a really very brief introduction to the country notebook. That is a major portion of your grade. We'll talk about it from time to time in class as well, but the bulk of the information can be found in part 6 of your text. So that's why that text is important. All right, I want to talk very briefly. In class, we talked about the SRC self-referencing criterion. And on our first exam, our first quiz that is at the 8th day, you have 4 days this week, 4 days next week, and the last day you have a quiz. There are a series of about 10 different acronyms, I guess they are, initials And I'm going to read those to you. If you want to get a pencil and paper and write those down, I'm going to read those to you. They're in the first and second and third chapters of the books. I think this is maybe four or five chapters worth of stuff. And on the quiz, you have the initials, the letters, and then you have to write out what it means. And it has to be right. So I'm going to read the initials to you, and I'll try to go slow so that you can jot those down, and then you can figure those out before our first quiz. G-A-T-T, GAT. W-T-O, I-M-F, S-R-C, I-C-I or I-D-V, P-D-I, U-A-I, P-time, M-time, T-I-C-P-I. Now, there are some other questions to the quiz that are short answer questions, but that's the first section, and those are the initials of the different things. We'll go through most of those in class or in online lectures, and they are in your text. All of these can be found in your text. So you can start studying that stuff now. So if you have not chosen a country, once again, I encourage you to choose your country. Email to me. Some people have already chosen countries, and if they have them first, then you are just out of luck. You'll have to find a different country. Remember the criteria: not your country, not the U.S., not your continent, somewhere else. Learn something new about somebody. And let's learn some new language stuff. I think it's always helpful to have a hello and a goodbye in somebody's language. Most of us probably know buenos dias and adios. So let's go with au revoir. And if I'm not saying it right, Natch, I'm sorry. Au revoir, which means goodbye in French.